Hey there, how y'all doing today? This is Data coming to you from my new gear room. I've really just cannibalized one of our spare bedrooms and turned it into a place to store my gear so that I'm not spreading stuff all over the house, which was beginning to be a pain in my neck and also a pain in Mrs. Data's neck. So I'll give you a quick tour in a minute, but before that, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of my post-hike reflections on the short section of the Ice Age Trail that I just hiked last week. So I hiked 16 miles on day 1 and 29 miles on day 2 total. Actual Ice Age mile trails were about 44 and a half. It was a pretty easy couple of days because it was all road walks. If you've seen the videos, you know that there are only a couple of short sections in this area on the southern part between Albany and Janesville in Wisconsin that are actual trails, and the rest of it's a couple of big long road walks. Some of that was okay, some of that was a little bit challenging, but I got it knocked out, and so I have mostly trail left as I head up the eastern edge of the trail in Wisconsin up towards Green Bay, several hundred miles for the next, till I finish up the eastern half of the trail. Probably take me the rest of the year doing it a little bit at a time like I've been doing it. So my takeaway, so first of all, the 29-mile day and 28 miles of trail, but 29 miles total. That's the longest day I have ever hiked since I began this long-distance hiking hobby about a year ago. So I'm pretty proud of that. It was a pain in the neck, and it wasn't real interesting because some of the roads were not real interesting, but it wasn't awful, and I got it done. So I now know that on the Ice Age Trail, I can do 30 miles in a day. Also probably means on the Appalachian Trail, those days I did last spring of 18 or 19 miles, that's probably about it for me for the Appalachian Trail, because the 29 miles on the Ice Age Trail is much easier than a similar mileage would be on the Appalachian Trail. But again, it's a good thing for me to know for my own, the status of my own abilities. So I did learn on this one because there was so many connecting roads and different types of connecting roads that there are basically, I now think, really two kinds of connecting roads on the Ice Age Trail between the trail segments. One kind of road is a quaint country road with, you know, a few little farms here and there and not very much traffic and some really nice scenery. And actually, I found those a very enjoyable hike. It reminded me a lot of the roads that I walked to and from school when I was a kid in rural Indiana. So the other kind is kind of a state highway with 2 lanes of very busy traffic going 50, 60, 70 miles an hour with not great shoulders in some cases. Those were challenging and a little bit dangerous at some point, so I had to really pay attention. I didn't care for those, but fortunately I don't think there are very many of those. The trail planners of the Ice Age Trail seem to do a pretty good job of routing you off of those busy state highways and back onto more country highways or country roads at every opportunity that I could find. So, you know, it was a good hike. I'm glad I got it done also, though. Another takeaway, I did a kind of a poor job of looking after my feet this time. This has never happened to me before, but I came up with blisters on both of my feet. And I dealt with them the same way I always do, by lancing the blister, draining it, and then using moleskin to protect the blister until it heals. And on my right foot this time that worked. On my left foot that did not work. The blister on my left foot got much bigger the second day than it was at the end of the first day. In fact, it ended up being about 3 inches around. And I'm off trail now for a week, and it is just finished healing up now. So I have to be more thoughtful about that in the future. And I kind of wonder if it wasn't the heat of hiking on the asphalt, because I've never done that before. But I'll need to think more in the future about paying attention to hot spots, and when I begin to get blisters, getting stopped and getting that dealt with better than I did this time. Other than those 2 blisters, I had a pretty good day, a pretty good pair of days hiking. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of good scenery. There were even some pretty nice trail sections. In particular, the section through Janesville, from the very edge of Janesville all the way to downtown and really out to the other side of town where I stayed in the hotel, it's pretty nice hiking. It was interesting stuff. An area called the Devil's Staircase, which is several miles of trail, which are they're not like Appalachian Trail difficult, but they were challenging enough and interesting, and I have had the poles out and had to pay attention to foot placement and things like that. So, you know, those were a good couple of days. And again, like I said, I won't have too many more of those long road walks from here through the end of the eastern terminus, which will probably take me the rest of the year, maybe into next spring, to do that. And then second for this video is the status of my 2-year adventure, my quest, as I'm calling it, to hike both the Ice Age Trail and the Appalachian Trail over the next 2 years. My goal is to have them both done by the end of 2026. As of this filming, I've now hiked over 170 miles of the Ice Age Trail. The Ice Age Trail is about 1,200 miles long, so, you know, I'm getting there. The Appalachian Trail, as of this filming, I've hiked about 350 plus miles of that. My next hike, as I've been, viewers of the channel may know from having watched for a while, I've now settled on that I'm going to hike the Ice Age Trail and the Appalachian Trail alternately in sections over the next 2 years to get them both completed. So my next section will be on the Appalachian Trail. It'll be in July, and it will be up through the Smokies. I'm still working out the details, and there's some challenges to that this year. But I'm going to cover that in the next video here in a couple of days, because some of it's still in flux. Some of the planning stuff is still in flux. But for now, this is Data saying thanks for following along. You know, if you could do the usual, like, subscribe, and follow along, that'd be great. If I'm covering things you don't want to hear about, let me know. If you'd like to hear more about one thing or another, I'd be glad to hear that also. I'm doing this video mainly, you know, for my own record and for my family and friends and folks watching it. So if you want me to talk about something different or hear my thoughts on some other part of my experience or gear or whatever, feel free to comment below. And also, you could, you know, share word of this channel with other older hikers who you know who might be interested in it. So in the meantime, I just wanted to say, you know, hope you're having a good weekend. And this is Data signing off for now, wishing happy trails to each of you. And this is just a quick overview of my gear room. I have a place to hang sleeping bags now in a closet, which is lined with cedar by the previous owner, so that's interesting adjunct. My gear setup table is kind of a little bit of a pack explosion because I'm changing out some gear for the Appalachian Trail hike, and I'll go into details of that on the next video. Here's the tracking map for the Ice Age Trail. That's Wisconsin there. This darkened in section is the part of it that I've already hiked. And then this is the Appalachian Trail tracking map. That's Katahdin way up there. I've only hiked down here. These 3 darkened in sections are the parts of it I've already hiked. That's Georgia and part of North Carolina there. This is a little section in Virginia that I just did with Late Start. And then this is the Shenandoahs up into Maryland. That's how I keep track of the hiking I'm doing. And then, again, I'm still getting the gear room set up, but I have a place where I'm going to store the kind of food that I can buy in bulk and then save a little money and keep a long-term supply on for other hikes. And then I've tried to bring all my literature in here so it's easier for me to find the kind of resources that a hiker whose trail name like mine is Data, you might imagine, likes reading books about it and studying about it. And then other collections of, you know, electronics and clothing, and then I've got other not as frequently used gear over here, and even some of the things that Mrs. Data and I use for car camping.